Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be rating some random cars. 15 cars I've handpicked and chosen off of the internet and rated. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the rating score system. So 0 through 2 is just abysmal. Awful by all standards. It is. 3 through 5 is still bad and wouldn't recommend you buying that car either. Decent is 6 through 9. It's a decent car. 10 through 13 is a impressive car. Well made, great quality and whatnot. 14 through 17, awesome car. And 18 through 20 is a golden car. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at number 1. Mitsubishi Mirage. It's a 3 out of 20. Buckle up, guys. This is going to be a long ride to talk about this car. I thought that this would deserve a 3 for a few reasons, but I really was straddling to give it a 2, maybe even a 1. But here's why it scores so low. The Mitsubishi Mirage is a throwaway car. No more of them will be left by 2020 even, so what's the point of preserving a car that's not even meant to be preserved? It's got 72 horsepower. Now, this car is good on fuel economy. I'll give it that, but that's it on this car. It's uncomfortable, it's slow, it's ugly, You really wouldn't want this to be in a car museum, would you? But when Mitsubishi's gone, there will be no more parts to supply this car. There will be nothing left. So my question is, why did they build this? Why? But that's besides the point. The reason I think that this really deserved a 3 is only because if you work 50 miles away, or you really don't have that much money to spring for a car, this is what you got. If you're working on the other side of town, that's really not a good idea to go and say, I want a Tahoe to drive 50 miles each day. Or, not a very good idea. So they came out with this, but it's only appealing to those people who work so far away. This car wasn't really designed to go on long road trips. Sure, you're not supposed to go on long road trips in subcompact cars anyway, but going on a road trip in another subcompact car is 30 times better than going in this. This car is light on technology, it's slayish, it's ugly, it's poor quality, it's everything that's not good. This car, now, it was accommodated to go in the city. It can explore larger towns and whatnot, but that's about it. That's about it. This car looks like something from 1996. It doesn't look very nice or anything. That's why it gets a 3 out of 20 now. Really, it deserves a -1. This car is uncomfortable to the extremes. It's ugly, it's cheaply made, it's probably cheaper than a Nissan Versa. Probably is. I'm not saying that because the MSRP is $9,995 or whatever. I'm saying that because this is a $14,000, $13,000 car, so it's really an abomination to any Mitsubishi people who were really big Mitsubishi fans before they just decided to cut the rope with the Lancer. This is not a good byproduct of Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi can do a million times better. But enough rambling about the Mitsubishi Mirage. On to number 2. The Jeep Wrangler. This is a fine car. It's just fine. Of course, these are meant for off-roading and to get dirty and muddy. So, of course, you won't preserve one of these in a museum unless it's a 1940s World War II example. But that's about it. You wouldn't really want to preserve a 1997 Wrangler. And you wouldn't want to preserve one of these either. I mean, this car is it's just a car. Yeah, you can go off-roading in the mountains outside of Boulder, but that's about it. If you really want to have fun, you get to have fun in this car for not that much. You can. It won't cost you just an absurd amount of money, but it won't cost you 11 grand. It's a nice car. It's well equipped, well powered, good engine, good quality. But it just falls short because this isn't a popular or, a really hot new car right now. Like the Tesla Model S or 3 or whatever, or the Chevy Bolt. It's just not. It's a new car, but it's not the hot new car that everybody's raving about, sleeping outside of car dealerships to get one. It's not. With that, moving on to number 3, the Dodge Demon. With this 18 out of 20 score, you can tell this is a good car. It's fast, first of all. When a Dodge, the same people who brought you the Neon, can go faster than a Ferrari, you know there's something wrong. When a Dodge can go faster than a LaFerrari, 0 to 60 in just over 2 seconds. Over 2 seconds. 0 to 60. That is amazing for anything. Plane, car, jet, whatever. It's amazing. Especially for a car. This really deserves a spot in any museum, but the only reason I think this falls short of getting it at 20 is because this is going to move on to another owner, and it's going to move on to the next generation, and so on and so forth, that it's really not worth all the preserving and whatnot. But it's here. It's the fastest car in the market as of right now. That is until the new Tesla Roadster comes out. But with that said, moving on to number 4, the Ford Focus. See, the Focus it's a really just decent car. It's borderline, it's decent. This isn't a car you want to preserve, like I said before. This isn't a car that you keep locked up in garages when it snows or rains outside. This car is meant for the elements. It's meant to do this. It's a Ford. It's supposed to be like this now. I can understand maybe a Ferrari, but we're not talking about a Ferrari. We're talking about a Ford. Ford Focus. It's decently crafted. It's decent cargo and decent fuel economy. Rounds out to be a decent car. Moving on to number 5. The Tesla Model 3. 20 out of 20. Awesome. Awesome car. Awesome car. Better than the Dodge Demon. This is the hot new car right about now. People sleeping outside of dealerships. You can, it's not even that. You can unlock and do whatever you need from the phone, from your phone. It's got a giant tablet in the center control stack. It's pretty much the future in the present. Now, no, this isn't flying cars or whatever, but this is the next best thing. 238 miles per charge, $35,000. You're rolling if you have one of these. Front trunk, rear trunk, you got practicality, I mean everything. All electric, which many people say, a Volkswagen Beetle can go 238 miles. It's not electric. Now, is it? No, this won't really be a good weekend getaway car from Denver to Salt Lake City and back, but it's a good car for around town. It's really good price, actually. When a Camry is just a little bit cheaper than this, I think I'd go for this rather than the Camry. Now you're saying the Camry is more practical because I can go across the state in this. You can go across the state in this too, if the state's Rhode Island, perhaps. But this car is a beauty. It's awesome. It's smaller than its predecessor, the Model S or the Model X, but still, this is a $35,000 Tesla. When you can buy a mid-size sedan for more than that, I think I'm going to buy the Tesla. The Tesla's got more tech, everything. The Tesla is just awesome. It deserves a 21 here, just because it's awesome. You cannot get a better car than this right about now. This is a hot new car that everybody's talking about. Everybody's making videos on. It's what can you say? What can you say? It's just a wonderful car. When you can unlock it with your phone and not have to push a button and worry about the key dying, this is the future in the present. Moving on to number 6, the Toyota Prius. It gets a 5 out of 20. A 5. Now this does straddle the line between bad, still bad, and decent. It does. I'm not even gonna lie. Now they've refreshed it and redesigned it many of times, and people still say, "Well, that's a Prius." Yeah, it's a Prius, but at least, I mean, they're trying on this car. Now, the Prius, I believe, docks points just because it's an ugly electric thing made by Toyota, same people who brought you the Supra. So, why would you make this? This was aimed at people who live in California, and I'm sure if you live in California, this would get a 10 or maybe even a 15 out of 20. Because this is aimed at Californians. Many Texans and Oklahomans, they really don't care about this. They have diesel trucks that can go, it doesn't make sense. But in objective terms in the rest of the nation, I really do think this gets a 5, just because it's still bad. It's not the best looking. It looks kind of futuristic, but not really. It's big, it's bulgy, and it's still electric. Now, it doesn't get a 3 or a 1 here because it's obviously got a lot of technology, and it looks way nicer. Way nicer than the Mirage. Just saying. Number 7, Chevy Bolt. It gets a 17. 1 7. This is also the hot new thing that everybody quote unquote wants, but they really don't. I've only seen 2 in my entire life now, partially because I live in Texas and people don't really want them, but at the auto show, and I've just seen one parked in a parking lot, so can't win. So the Chevy Bolt gets its high score just because it's that cool new electric car as well. It's not as popular as a Model 3 or any other Tesla, but it's still a nice car. It's got a decent amount of technology and blah blah blah, but really I'm giving it 17 because of its popularity with the Model 3. Everybody's Bolt versus Model 3 and Model 3 versus Bolt and blah blah blah. They're both good cars. Both around the same price, both around the same range. Alright? But this does dock points because many people say, well, I get more tech in the Model 3, but you don't have to wait all year to get a Chevy Bolt now, do you? No, you don't. Moving on to number 8. BMW 7 Series. This gets a 14. Now, many people are going to say, oh, this deserves a 20 out of 20, or some people are going to say this deserves a 1 out of 20. But really, it does deserve a 14 here. Because it's this cool little luxury sedan, and it can make the awesome category here. Well crafted, a lot of tech. Some say more than the Teslas. We'll see how true that is. But I mean, when the key has a screen, it kind of deserves a high score. Now, I'm not going to give it a 20 just because its key has a screen. In 2025, what key won't? You won't be able to tell the difference between a phone and a key. You already can't, but you get my idea. The 7 Series has just been hated. It's been hated for so long, and now that it's making a nice comeback, people are wondering, hey, what's that? Well, you should have been saying that in 2002 when the car had a navigation system and backup camera, when you were still looking back, cracking your neck, trying to look back to see if there's a car. But this car had the stuff. It just was 81 grand for it. Yeah, that's a lot of money. A lot of money. But what can you do? They're not going to lower the price just for you. Say, oh, we're going to make it 40 grand for you. No, they're not going to do that. But at the same time, this is a nice car. I can understand somebody paying a little over 130 grand for it. But it's a BMW. It's a very nice, very technology-filled vehicle. You can't really get that in your Camry or your Soul. Can't. But of course, there are drawbacks. Some say too much tech. And that's the reason it gets a 14. Number 9. The Honda Accord. So the Honda Accord it gets an 8 out of 20 because it's a decent car. It's well made. It's well put together, and obviously one of the most popular midsize sedans in America, which is enough for me to give it an 8 out of 20. Now, would it get a 10 or maybe an 11 out of 20? Probably not, because yeah, it's nicely put together, but that's about it. There's no real substantial things in the vehicle. that will make me say, oh yeah, it deserves a 10 or 13 or whatever out of 20. It's not. It's just a regular mid-sized sedan that every American probably has. Now, is it just a Mitsubishi Mirage awful? No. By no means it is that awful, but it's not even a Chevy Bolt awesome. It's not. It just manages to fall under a few things, under the radar. Like, it's not really that fast. Obviously, mid-sized sedans aren't supposed to have 600 horsepower, but you get my idea. Because this isn't exactly biased to mid-sized sedans or SUVs, that's why I think it gets a below average score. 10 out of 15, the Toyota Previa. It's a 5 out of 20. Yes, it's tied with the Toyota Prius. Let me tell you a little bit why. This is a weird, interesting car. I'm not gonna lie, it is. But that's about it. This is obviously used, not preserved. It's meant to be out there in the elements. This is a throwaway car now that we have the Sienna. Yes, Japan is still producing the Previa for themselves and pretty much not for us anymore. Like, we have the Sienna, so I think we're going to be fine without the Previa. The main issue with the Previa is, number one, it's underpowered. Number two, it's ugly. And number three, it's used, not preserved. These things can hit absurd numbers, insane numbers even. 400,000 miles, 375,000 miles, 500,000 miles. These are practical people movers. They're not made to just have 62,000 miles on them until they actually decide to drive it. It's meant to have wear and tear. It's a minivan, for God's sake. So that's why I think it gets a little light on the scoring, because really, if this were a Sienna or whatever, it may have gotten a little more. Because those are actually more common, and those aren't really Fallout cars. I mean, they are, but they're not as Fallout as this. This car, they don't make the Previa anymore, so if your headlight's broken, sorry for you. If your windshield wipers don't work, well, you can get some from the Sienna. That's all we can tell you. Interesting car, yes. But interesting enough for you to even get a 6 or 7? No. Number 11. Yeah, the Honda Odyssey. The van to actually crack 50 grand. This car is a 9 out of 20. See, this is also a throw-out car. First owner's going to have it for a few years, put 70, 80,000 miles on it, whatever. We're going to move on to the next owner, where their babies are going to vomit all over the seats once a week. And then a third owner, and then it's going to be done with his life. Just like the Previa and pretty much every other car I've reviewed so far. Used, not preserved. That means you're not going to just let it sit in your garage because it's springing outside, or you're not going to let it sit in your garage because it's 48 degrees outside and you only drive it when it's above 50. This car is meant to handle hot, cold, wet, whatever. It's just meant for that. It's meant for that. It's simple as that. It's practical. It's a practical people mover like the Previa. Insanely practical. A lot of technology, but it's a van. No van's ever going to cross 15 in my opinion. not for a little while at least. And so that's why it gets a 9. Like, it's really good for a minivan. Really good. But it's one of the last minivans left also, and it avoids many things that the Sienna or the Pacifica may encounter. This thing's got cabin talk, or you can zoom in and see what your kids are doing without having to go back there and yell. And it's a good car. Number 12, Ford F-150. Yes, it gets a 2 out of 20. You're probably saying, "Well, why would this get a 2? It's worse than a Mirage." No, 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 no. I explained to you that this would get a low score because this is the generation, the current generation. Within a few years, 1 or 2 years from now, we're going to move on to the next generation. And so on and so on. So this car is going to have 498,000 miles on it, and then it's going to be done with its life. It's not pretty. It's not like a Tesla or any other vehicle. It's not. This car is, it's not that it's bad. No, the Mirage is a bad car. It's because I know this car is going to have 22,000 owners, and then they're going to have 5 new generations ahead of this thing, and it's not really that important to the world. It's important right now, don't get me wrong, but I'm thinking ahead in the future when 2025 a car's going to be able to drive itself and unload itself or whatever. And this car's still going to be struggling if it's even still around. Yes, insanely reliable. Like, imagine a 1999 Ford. That was a huge deal, but there's still 1999 F-150 that still has 41,000 miles on it. Now, is there? No. Every single F-150 from that era has thousands upon thousands of miles on it. It's been used, rusting a little bit. It's in bad condition. They're not used to be preserved. They're used so you can go haul stuff. They're meant to get scratched and dented and whatever. It's not like a Ferrari to where if you ding your front bumper, you have to go to the Ferrari dealer and pay $210,000 to get it repaired. No, this car is meant for that. If you accidentally ding your bumper on a big rock off-road, who cares? This thing can handle it. It's not like a Ferrari or even a Mirage in this sense, to where if anything happens, you probably want to go get it fixed. Now, if you have a major collision, yeah, you're going to go get that fixed. But if you're just barely tapping the bumper, no, I'm not going to get that fixed for anything. And so that's why it scores so well. Number 13, Nissan 370Z. It gets a 14 out of 20. Yes, a 14 out of 20. According to my chart, that is awesome. Awesome. And it is awesome. For a few reasons. This is a fast Nissan. Now, keep this in mind. It's not a Skyline, GTR, or anything like that. It's left-hand drive. It's that. But compared to the Altimas and Sentras and Armadas and Rogues or Qashqais, as some of you guys call it, and the Titans, this is different. It's meant to have fun in. It's meant to go up to 150 on the speedometer and do other things that you probably you wouldn't want your Altima doing. So this is, number one, important for a Nissan. and important in the car industry because, well, it's in the line with the Charger and the Challenger and the Camaro and the maybe not Corvette, but you get where I'm coming from. It's in that kind of line with the Eclipse and whatnot. So what I'm trying to say, this is important not only for Nissan but for every other successful sports car manufacturer because it's getting a new spot in line. This car is not perfect. It's got a lot of flaws, but it's finely crafted. It's fast. It's fun to enjoy for a little while. But after that little while, it may get a little boring. But that's why it sustained a decent score, but just not a wonderful, great score. It's not an 18 or a 19 out of 20. By no means. Number 14, Mazda MX-5 Miata. Everybody loves the Miata. It's a fun, yippy little sports car. It's fun to have around. It's a joy. You can park it in small spaces or whatever you want in it. But this car gets a 16 out of 20. Really, really good car for weekends and off-roading, or excuse me, not off-roading, but you can do whatever you want. That doesn't involve that, but you can go 120 on the highway. You probably wouldn't, but you get my idea. This is a fun car. And many Miata fans are happy that this car has made a comeback. It's a yippy, fun little car. And that's why it gets a 16 out of 20. Again, not perfect. By no means perfect. But it's a really, really interesting car. Number 15. Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. This was Mitsubishi's past when people used to fight about the WRX and the Lancer Evo. It's fast, it's fun, and now Mitsubishi's just making the Mirage. Like, this car is a fun, fast car, and it gets a 19 because the Lancer, I'm sure, will never be able to make a return as sweet as it was when it was in production. Like, this car was the fate of Mitsubishi. When they cut it off, it's like cutting your wrist off. You're cutting your hand off in your wrist. When you do that, you're gonna bleed out and die, and that's what Mitsubishi just did. They slit their wrists, and they're bleeding out, and they're gonna die. Because now all they have is the Outlander, maybe the Eclipse Cross, and the Mirage. What are they gonna do with that? They don't even have the Galant anymore. I mean, that's not so much as an interesting car, but at least it was able to compete with the Camry and the Altima and the Accord, at least. But this is what you get. It's just what you get. This was a great car, last of its breed, the best of the breed, and it's gone, but you can always remember it. And with that being said, let's look at the stats. Our average car score was 11. We had one awful car, which was the F-150. 3 pretty bad cars, which was the Mirage and 2 others. 3 okay cars. 1 good car. 4 awesome cars. and 3 golden cards, including the Lancer Evo. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If we can get 5 likes, I will make a second part, and I have a commentary about this coming soon. So, as always, I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next video.